Okay, guys, welcome back to another video. I took the last couple of days off just to chill out a little bit. Today we're back and it's kind of a special one today, something a little bit different. And we took a poll in Telegram to see what people would want to see. And so this was one of the ones that people really wanted. And so let's dive into the 3 truths about consistency or consistently profitable trading. So the first truth that I really want you to understand is that consistency in trading is essentially equivalent to acquiring a skill, right? It's like learning to code, learning a new language, learning to speak publicly at a high level. They all require the same thing, and that is to acquire a skill, learning how to acquire a skill. And so the thing is with trading, right, is that money is what blinds us, right? It's you can open up MetaTrader on your phone for the first time, and this is what I did when I started. I heard about Forex, and I downloaded MetaTrader on my phone. I put $100 into an account. I pressed buy, and it went in profit. I won, $10, and so now I was up 10% on that account. And I said, "Holy shit! I just made 10% on my account just by clicking a button, and then it went up just like that. This is insane." I ended up losing that account, of course, because I didn't know that it's a skill. You have to treat it as such, right? And so the question is not how to trade, but rather how to acquire any skill, because this is the exact same process that I've used to learn Spanish, that I've used to learn a bunch of things in my life. Well, realistically, I've learned it mainly for learning Spanish and learning how to trade and stuff like that. Working out as well, right? It's all the same thing that you're going to do. So how do we acquire a skill? First off, we have to learn what to learn. Okay. So what do I mean by that when I say learn what to learn? This is the point of a mentor, or this is the point of learning from someone that already has experience. And there's people that say, oh no, well, you just learn by yourself. I agree. There is going to be a point where you have to take what the mentor gives you and then really put in the hours. Like that's how you're going to achieve consistency, is by putting in the hours. But I think it's absolutely absurd to think that you should spend the beginning to the end just by yourself with no path to achieve something, because that is just so inefficient. Like if you want to achieve your goals in the quickest time possible, like why would I try and do that all by myself when there's people that are consistently profitable, smashing, that have way more knowledge than I do, that I could just learn from them, see what they do, and then put in the learning, but just focus on the things that they teach, right? That's going to be, for me, that's going to be, or that'd be the most efficient way. And so the starting to acquire any skill is learn what to learn. So just an example in Spanish, for me, I decided to learn, or I decided to just Google to start it off, right? It's the same way I learned Italian as well, was that I started off by Googling and just kind of learning about learning a language, learning like what people do to learn a language, what people use, what resources they use, stuff like that, right? I think that that's one of the most important and overlooked parts of learning a skill. You start off there, just a quick Google search. Just learn what people are doing, learn from people that have actually learned a language, that learned how to trade, that are consistently profitable, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's number one in acquiring any skill. I apologize about my dog. Again, always, every time we start a video, it seems like he just loves to bark. So I apologize about that, guys. Next step is learning what to learn. Using, or I would say to use the Pareto principle. Okay, so the Pareto principle is what? The 80-20 rule. Now, this is a really important part of my learning. And so if you're not sure of what the Pareto principle is, it's essentially that 20% of your input yields 80% of your output. Okay, so an example would be in business, right? In business, say you have a store and you have maybe 10 different types of t-shirts, and say 10 different types of t-shirts, right? And 2 of those t-shirts are going to be resulting in 80% of your sales, right? There's going to be the rest of them, but 2 of them are going to be resulting and 80% of your sales. They're going to be the main money the main revenue that your company is generating, right? So for me, that example is exactly what happened. I had a t-shirt business in university, and we had 3 shirts, and I think we had about 80 shirts up there. We had 3 shirts that sold 80% to 90% of our sales. And I think we made about 40,000, 50,000 US dollars in 3 months. And it was incredible, right? But it was funny to see. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't understand the Pareto principle at the time, but that was it, right? That's why it's just a natural kind of tendency for the world. And essentially, if we use that Pareto principle, we can start to think and reassess our learning in that type of way. It's what's the 20% most important things that I can learn now that will yield 80% of the results in the future. So again, let's go back to the language learning for a second, because I think it's I think it's a good lesson. So the second thing I did when learning a language was searching around to see what people are doing. Second, I use the Pareto principle. Okay, so in any language, the most common 3,000 words yield 90% of spoken language, right? Think about it for a second. We don't use every single word in English in the dictionary, right? We use a finite amount in our spoken language. And so if I learn the most common words, the 3,000 most common words in English, then that means I'm going to have access or be able to understand a significant amount, 90, 80% of the language. I think the actual statistic in Spanish, at least, was like 97%. If you can understand the most common 3,000 words. Okay. And it makes sense because, like, how many times do you use the word flashlight, for example, right? Not that frequently, but the words I am or you are, you're going to be saying that all the time, multiple times daily. So it's so much more important to focus on these 20%, right? Than all these random words and stuff that are going to be yielding no results in your actual learning. So focus on that 20%, and that's how you really expedite the process. So with trading, it's that same thing. You get from that mentor basically the most important things, and then you double down on the things that you believe to be the most important through your experience, and you just double down on them, and you just learn and you learn and you learn, and you keep asking yourself, what's the most important? What's the 20% most important things that I need to learn? And then focus on them. It's exactly if you're studying for an exam, right? What's the most go through your textbook and flip to the end of the chapter, and you'll see all those questions at the end of the chapter, all those examples. Those are going to be the most important parts of that chapter, right? So you focus on those. You read those, then you go through the chapter and you start studying, and you can say, okay, well, this is going to be the most important part of the chapter. So whenever these things pop up in my reading, I'm going to start studying them. Like, I'm going to focus my attention and copy notes on those parts. Then anything else that's not really in there, I can just kind of skim through. You don't have to spend your energy and your time on doing that. Okay. So the Pareto principle is super, super important. Now, after you know that, now you have to set a learning schedule, right? This is something that that has to be tailored to you, right? Your schedule, right? If you work full time, you can't be learning trading 8 hours a day, but don't feel, right? Don't feel like that's a problem, because it's not. The reality is it's not. A lot of people that have all day to learn spend all day not learning, right? They waste that time. Whereas if you have a job and you're driven and you say, hey, I really want to learn how to trade, well, that means I have 2 hours in a given day. So I'm going to use those 2 hours, not even a second wasted, right? Not even a second wasted. And so that's what I think is a really important thing, is to set a learning schedule. When exactly are you studying, right? Every day, consistently, right? What are you going to be studying that day? What are you going to be studying that week? What's your focus for this month? You have to have something like that, where today I'm going to be focusing on this, or this week I'm going to be focusing on developing this and back testing this and doing this, right? Because this is the thing. You might have a strategy, or you might learn a strategy, but that strategy has its components, and those components need their own individual attention and their own individual focus. And so setting a learning schedule, that saying, this day I'm doing this week I'm doing this month I'm focusing on this, and then you can go back and review. That's what you want. So set a learning schedule, and then you can start executing on it, right? Fourth is you have to it kind of goes hand in hand with that, right? You have to deliberately practice each component of the skill. So say the skill is comprised of 5 different individual components, right? You have to practice in depth, deliberately, each single component. Going back to the language example, okay? Going back to the language example, you have, what is language comprised of? Well, it's comprised of writing, reading, listening, speaking, right? So we have 4 different skills. I'm going to have to learn each of those skills independently. I'm going to have to put an effort to each one of those skills independently, right? And focus, have these set learning schedules, right? Or these set periods of time, say a month. This month, I'm focusing solely on listening. So I'm going to just abuse listening. I'm going to just listen as much as I can to whatever I can all the time. And this is how I advance so quick in Spanish, by the way. Is through this, is that I set up different things that I'm going to do. The first is I'm going to learn the first month or two, or the first month, I learned the most common words. Then I started listening aggressively, like all day, as much as I could. Going on a walk, I had podcasting, just listening, trying to listen to those words that I just learned, right? And so on and so forth. So you go through this process, but you have to deliberately practice each component of the skill. And it's super important. So with trading, say you have a strategy and it's comprised of 5 different components, okay? You have to go through the practice and study each one. For example, I know this is more of a smart money-based channel or ICT teaching channel. So what you have to go through is each one of his components individually. So if you want to learn breaker blocks, for example, you want to incorporate it to your trading, you have to study in-depth breaker blocks. You have to look at what are going to be the high probability ones, which ones aren't high probability, why didn't they work out? You log them, you review them, log them, review them, and then you test them, right? You test them individually, meaning you go on a trade, you go on like a live trading account, or ideally demo, or live with a tiny amount of money, and you just start executing on only breaker blocks, right? Only breaker blocks based on the rules that you have for them. And so when it gets there, boom, you execute, and then that's it. You see the result. And if you get positive results from it, then you include it into your trading plan, right? That is how you do it. You don't just find something on YouTube and then you just say, okay, this guy said it, so it's true, let's add it. No, test it and break it down, each individual part. Fair value gaps. Okay, let's just test fair value gaps. So you go through and you just test, and you just only search for that period of time. Hugely important part is deliberate practice. Deliberately practicing each component, okay? And the last one is going to be get feedback. So the beautiful part about trading is that it's instant feedback, right? You can put on a trade, and if it goes and hits your stop loss, boom, okay, you got instant feedback. Immediately, you can assess what happened there. Why did it happen? Was it just the probability model playing out, or were there other elements that you didn't see that's what led to your analysis being wrong? And that's usually the case for me. Because what I know in the market, I find are the truths of the market, right? Based on my teachings from, or my learning from Chris Laurie and ICT. And again, I give them all the credit in the world. This is, everything I've learned is essentially from them. And then I just had my own experience in internalizations with the market, with their knowledge, that allowed me to achieve what I'm achieving now. Okay. So the beautiful part about that, though, is that you get feedback instantly, you log it, you record it, and you figure out why that happened, right? And you get that instant feedback. And so you can kind of make changes, and you can kind of learn, and you can learn, and you can learn at every stage, at every point. This is super important. And getting feedback, don't be afraid of feedback. If it's a loss, it's not a loss to you. It's actually a gain if you use it. It's a gain if you gather the data. You're gaining data, right? You're not losing anything. You're gaining data. You might say, oh yeah, I'm losing money. No, you're not. You're gaining data. So then in the future, you're going to be making money. That loss will help you avoid future losses. So it's just about kind of changing your mindset and stop viewing failing and stop viewing failure in general as a negative thing. Because if I told you to get to this destination, you have to follow this route, and then you go into that route and you say, nah, I don't like it. Well, that means you're just not going to get to the destination, right? The reality is failure is a part of the destination. And to be failing doesn't mean that you're a failure, right? To fail does not mean that you're a failure. To fail is just an important step along the way. It's absolutely necessary. So if it's necessary, then stop viewing it as something that's bad. It's our previous learnings throughout school, right? Of course, school is one of the main ones where you get ostracized for failing or for doing bad. And so we've built this up in our head that failing is a bad thing. But failing just means that you're doing things properly. In my opinion, you're failing as long as you're learning. So get that feedback from those failures, get that feedback from those winners, extract the data, write it down, and then that's it. I should add really another step right here. Okay, and let's just do that. Right after you get that feedback, after you go through this whole cycle, right? You deliberately practice, you get feedback, then you have to review, right? You have to go over what you learned, you log everything, you take all the information down, and then you review it. You understand where you went wrong, where you went right, why you went right, why you went wrong. Okay. And through that, you're going to be able to acquire that skill. And that is the truth about being consistent, is that you have to treat it as a skill rather than focusing on the money. You cannot focus on the money. This has nothing to do with the money right here, right? This whole 6-step process has nothing to do with the money, but rather it has everything to do with acquiring a skill. Okay. So that's what my recommendation is. And that's one of the truths about consistently trading is it's essentially acquiring a skill. And that's the only thing you should be focusing on, not the money. Okay. Truth number 2, consistency in learning is not linear, right? When we initially start learning, what do we think is going to happen? Well, we think that this is going to happen, right? We believe that our learning is going to be consistent with our experience. We believe that the more we spend time in the market, the more we're going to learn. The more we spend time in the market, the more we're going to learn, right? The reality is that we actually follow more of the learning curve. Like this is what the actual learning curve looks like, right? It's kind of like this law, or it's like the law of diminishing returns. It's as soon as you reach a certain threshold where your learning starts to kind of go down, right? You stop learning as much, and this is the part of mastery. After it breaks this trend line, right? This trend line going up, this is the part of mastery, and this is where really all of the consistency actually comes from. Okay, this beginning is like that honeymoon phase of the market, or the honeymoon phase of anything, of acquiring any skill. Oh, I want to learn this language because then I can communicate, and then I can do this, then I can do that. But the problem is you learn all these words so quickly, but then the actual process of mastering that language and becoming fluent per se is this part, is the part that takes the longest, and it's the most incremental gains that you'll experience, right? And basically what I wanted to show is essentially this, is that this is our idea in the beginning, right? Is that this linear process is like this red line, right? We anticipate our learning to continue in this linear fashion. Once it breaks that and it starts kind of weaning off, well, what does that mean? We start to get, our expectations are not matching our results, which causes what? Pain, which causes anger, which causes everything like that, frustration. Okay. And so the idea is that we have to understand this truth from the get-go. And when we understand it right from the beginning, then we can be conscious of it, and we can say, and we can anticipate this, that yeah, this learning like this is not going to last forever. And so when it starts weaning off, I'm prepared for it. These are my expectations are set, and I just have to remain consistent. I wrote it here. To be consistent is to be consistent, right? It's to be consistently executing on our plan. It's to be consistently following the process of acquiring a skill. Is to be consistently waking up in the morning, consistently going through the steps that we've tested, that we've run through, even in the face of our results waning off, our learning waning off. Because this is the thing, right? Is that our results are a lagging indicator of our habits and what we actually do. And so sure, your results might be going like this, but your habits might be bang on, right? You might be learning, and you might be going every day doing the exact same thing, grinding, hustling, and you're doing well. You're following the process of acquiring a skill. You're smashing it. right? But the results may not be showing. And so don't worry about that. The results are a lagging indicator. If you continue, it's just like losing weight or gaining weight, right? If you want to gain muscle, you have to consistently hit the gym, consistently eat well, right? Consistently do cardio, do all these things in order, right? In order to achieve the level that you want to achieve. However, it's lagging. You don't realize that you're making gains until you look at yourself in the mirror a year later and be like, wow, I have some pecs now, you know, like I have some abs, I can see it. Whereas before you look like a bag of milk, you know, that's the difference. And that's the thing, you have to understand and set these expectations. So then at least, right, you set these expectations that this is going to be how the learning is going to be, right? Not this. And so just understand that that's the second truth, that consistency in learning is not linear. It's more like that. Okay. Truth number 3, and this is such an important one. There's levels to consistency. Okay. There's levels to the shit. Okay. So in the beginning, this is typically what happens, right? You have your break even, your account starts off here, boom, you immediately start losing for however amount of time. Then you realize, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's learn. So you start learning and you start gaining your account balance up, start gaining your account balance up, et cetera, and you reach your break even point, right? Now, this is the reality of the situation. What isn't the reality is what we think is going to happen here is that we have our break even point, right? We drop down and then we start acquiring the skill. Then all of a sudden, because we're consistent traders now, as soon as we hit break even, boom, we're making 100% months. Right? Like, it's just not the reality. There's levels to this shit. First is to become, you go from unprofitable, right, to a break-even trader. Now you're trading break-even. It's going to stay like this. You're going to be going like this. The next stage of that learning is to get relatively profitable or a little bit more profitable, right? So you get a little bit more profitable, and you can see here, right? You get a little bit more profitable. Okay. And then you start losing less. You start trying to figure out, how can I lose less? And how can I take higher probability trades? Then you start gaining up a little higher. Then you go to the next stage, right? The next level where you're staying up and around making X% per month. Then you learn more and you gain this stage. But this is a really slow process to do that. But you have to understand there's levels. Just because you're a break-even trader, right? Or just because you're slightly profitable doesn't mean that you're going to be making 100% per month, right? And this is a kind of an expectation that holds you back. It holds you back and it frustrates you because now all of a sudden you're trading profitably, but you're only making, 1 to 2 or 3% per month, right? And again, you have these expectations that, oh yeah, I know a guy that makes 100% per month or 50% per month, right? And so you think just because you're slightly profitable that you can make that as well. And the reality is well, maybe there are going to be months where you do hit that. The reality is that you have to have this understanding that there are levels to consistency, right? Understand what level that you're at and then work to develop into the next level. View your data and just see, hey, what am I consistently hitting? What am I consistently hitting every week, every month, every year, whatever? Okay. That tells you which tier you're in, right? And then which tier do you want to get up to? And then what do you have to do to get up to that tier? Are you losing, 70% of your trades, right? 70% of your trades. And that's what's kind of causing you to sit down here with your risk to reward ratio. Okay, well then now you have to focus on, how can I lose maybe 5% less trades or 10% less trades? If I can do that, that'll get me to the next tier 100%. Okay, so what can I do? And you study and you gain, and now you move on to that next tier of your learning. Okay. So that's my recommendation, or that I would say is the last truth to consistency. Don't set those expectations that you're just going to be, as soon as you're profitable, you're going to be jumping to 100% per month. That's just not the reality. Understand that there's levels to it, and then focus on which level that you're on and gain and slowly build until you're hitting that level that you want. All right. So that's all, guys. That's really it for today. I apologize about my dog in the background. I know it's kind of distracting and stuff. Again, it just seems like every time we want to do a video, he seems like he's going wild. So I do apologize about that. And yeah, we'll catch up soon. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment and let me know if you guys liked it. Please let me know Also, what other videos you want me to do in the future, I'd love to do them. Okay, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers, guys.